Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I would like to talk to you about domestic violence. Usually, we hear this term domestic violence, so the question becomes what is domestic violence? What are the actions that constitute domestic violence? In the book, Behind Closed Doors, Male Experience of Domestic Violence in the Age of Denial, I try to explore this topic and I try to explain the actions that constitute domestic violence. And there are many frameworks out there which have been developed they have been developed from experiences of those who have experienced domestic violence. One of these framework is what I'll be discussing today. It is called the abuse cycle. And from there, you can actually understand what domestic violence is. It's also a cycle, all right? The abuser never wants you to leave. So they do everything to exert power and control over you to trap you in the abuse cycle. This framework that I'll be reading, the abuse cycle, was developed from female experiences, all right? But now, of course, you can use it also to understand the experiences of other gender groups, including male victimization. So let me read it to you. In 1979, psychologist Dr. Lenore Walker published her groundbreaking book, The Battered Woman, for which she received an award after interviewing over 1,500 female survivors of physical violence. Her studies revealed that abuse isn't a random event, but rather a pattern of behaviors carefully planned by the abuser, repetitive and escalating over time. Dr. Walker's model describes the cycle of abuse in four phases. Phase 1, tension phase. External stressors like difficulties at work may cause the abuser to feel angry, aggressive, or impatient. The target of abuse tries to calm the situation by avoiding conflict in a variety of ways that may be characterized as, quote, walking on eggshells. Incident phase. To regain power and control, the abuser releases their built up tensions through harmful tactics as described in the power and control wheel. Now, just briefly, what is the power and control wheel? The power and control wheel, again, is it was developed by survivors of domestic violence. It describes the broad spectrum of actions that abusers use, once again, to exert power and control over their targets. Now, so the fourth phase, according to Dr. Lenore Walker, reconciliation phase. During this phase, the abuser pretends to be remorseful, acting charming and overly kind to their targets. Research shows that during this phase, the brain releases hormones that may lead to trauma bonding, making the victim feel more attached to the abuser. The calm phase, which is the fourth and last. The abuser blames the victim or denies responsibility using tactics like gaslighting or minimizing the abuse. They might blame external factors to avoid accountability, which keeps the abuse cycle going. So you realize that when abusers, they are acutely aware of what they do. They abuse you and then they blame you. They abuse you and they go around and say that they are the victims in order to evade accountability. All right? Nobody abuses and say, I'm the abuser. They always try to look for excuses to justify their actions. And I have to say, when you do the research, you realize that the only place where abuse is not only permissible, it's perfectly justified, is self-defense. Absent that, there is no excuse for abuse. Nobody deserves to be abused, and nobody has the right to abuse. All right, so let me just read to you this one passage that you can take home. The relationship between the power and control wheel and the cycle of abuse is significant. Both frameworks illustrate how abusers deliberately use a combination of emotional, psychological, physical, and sometimes financial tactics to maintain dominance over their victims. The abuse is never a random act. It is a calculated exercise of power designed to control and manipulate the victim. What is critical to remember is that both the power and excuse me. What is critical to remember is that both the power and control wheel and the cycle of abuse were developed by survivors of abuse, women who choose the path to peace by breaking free from cycles of harm for themselves and others. Their experiences teach us that abuse is about their experiences teach us that abuse is always a choice made by the abuser. It is a choice that stems from a desire for power and control. And for that, abusers must be held accountable. By recognizing these patterns, we can better understand the dynamics of abuse, offer support to all victims, and work towards a society where abuse is no longer tolerated. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I want to bring to you today. So stay strong, and please, if you think that you are experiencing domestic violence, please seek support, seek help where it is relevant. Domestic violence shelters, legal advice, support groups. I just created a support group, even though it's for men, but women, of course, if you think that you've heard something here that strikes you as particular and you think that you can reach out to receive support, please do not hesitate. Though I'm more focused on male victimization, I do understand that women also are going through domestic violence, and sometimes the support is also hard to find by some women. That I perfectly understand. So if you think that I have said something that strikes you as particular, or you think that I can provide support to you, please reach out. The distance between you, especially if you're a man, and support is a phone call, is a walk to a domestic violence shelter. Do not stay in isolation. It is never your fault. The guilt is for those perpetrating violence. The guilt is not for those receiving violence. Abusers are the ones who deserve accountability. Those who are experiencing violence deserve protection and support. Thank you.